perhaps a silly thought, this idea barely caught, yet it won't let you sleep.
Hi, this is Todd Ross, and today I'm in Mesa, Arizona, and I got the pleasure to speak with Austin Gutwein and his father, Dan. He's a 14-year-old founder of Hoops of Hope, an organization dedicated to making changes in the lives of kids in Africa, one hoop at a time. My daughter Morgan and I drove from our home in Los Angeles to meet with them today and hear Austin's amazing story about how he's using basketball to change lives in Africa. He's built schools, he's built a hospital, medical center, and you too can get involved today, whether you're a kid or an adult, in helping to change lives in Africa, one hoop at a time. Hello, Austin. I must admit, when I first heard your story, I was totally blown away and asked my wife and daughter to, actually tell it again. It was just incredible hearing what, not only a big idea that you had, but that you actually went out and did it, and you're still doing it. What first inspired you to help kids on the other side of the world, kids you've never met?
Well, what first really inspired me to go out and help those kids is I had seen a video talk about a little girl named Maggie who had lost her parents due to AIDS over in Zambia. And it just really hit me. It made me think about what life would be like without my parents. And I just decided that, I had to go out and do something about this.
So they sent us this video and we watched it together as a family. We thought, oh, this is from his sponsor child company. Let's go kind of, watch this video together. And the four of us sat down, my wife and I, my daughter, in Austin, and we sat down and watched this video, and he learned that there were, 15 million children who had been orphaned due to HIV/AIDS. And his sponsor child was living in one of those communities where all these kids had lost their parents. And I remember three of us kind of walked out of the room thinking that was sad, it's terrible, and Austin just broke down. He was 9 years old, and people always said, why did you let your 9-year-old watch that video? And I didn't think anything of it. I thought, our sponsor company sent us this video, I'm sure it's okay. But it impacted him, obviously now 5 years later to still continue to go out and do something. And literally after we watched that video for probably, I would say 3 or 4 months, and I'm not exaggerating, almost on a daily basis, he would come to me and say, Dad, is there something else that we can do to help these kids?
So you're 9 years old and you come to your parents and you say, hey, Mom and Dad, I got this big idea. What was the reaction?
Well, I think that their response was they were really supportive to me, but I think that they didn't really know if I could do it.
Dan, your 9-year-old comes to you one day and says, hey, Dad, I got this idea. I want to be a part of making a difference. I want to take what I watched in that video and I want to do something. And he comes up with this idea. What do you do as a dad?
First of all, when he came to me with the idea that he wanted to help other kids, that was awesome, because we'd always tried to teach our kids, as we used to say, that life is kind of bigger than your own backyard. So the fact that he was actually getting that and was, somewhat passionate about kids around the world was awesome. When he came to me with the idea that he had, I thought he was crazy. I still think he's probably half crazy with the idea, but it actually works. It seems to work and work well. But we initially, sponsored a couple of kids through World Vision. Just so we could actually teach our kids that, what they had. At the time we were living in South Orange County, California, that what they had, they were very fortunate to have, and that life wasn't like this for all other kids. We were just trying to teach them more of a global view of the world. And I remember the first time I heard about this idea that he came up with, I told my wife, I said, Denise, I said, there's not an adult in this world that could shoot that many free throws and live to tell the story, right? I said, let alone a 10-year-old kid. I said, I don't think it can humanly be done. I was being very realistic, right? I was using my adult education here and insight to say this. And then I also told my wife, I said, I don't think anyone will ever donate to this thing. I said, but let's encourage him. And let's treat him as though he can do this. And we encouraged him every step along the way. We sat down together and said, okay, Austin, how do you want to get the word out? And we found people that we thought might donate. And that's what we did. And it's now become a complete family effort, as you can imagine.
How did you put on your first Hoops of Hope?
The first Hoops of Hope event is what happened is I had seen a video basically talking about a little girl named Maggie, and I had just really thought about what life would be like without my parents, and I decided that I had to do something about it. So I talked to my parents about what a 9-year-old could do to make a difference, and they didn't really know, so they put me in contact with World Vision, and a man up there basically said, you know, hey, go out and use your favorite sport to make a difference. So since basketball is my favorite sport, that's what I decided to do.
So Dan, has this become a second full-time job of sorts? You're working full-time, you're raising a family, you've got a wife and 2 kids, and now your son is going along with you, and he's helping to build schools and a hospital around the world. How has this impacted your day-to-day life?
More so than I ever dreamed. More so than we ever dreamed. And honestly, I remember the first time that Austin went to do his Hoops of Hope event. It was just Austin, and he went to his school gym by himself. And we actually took the day off of school, and I got his administrator's approval to that. And he let us use like this little corner of the gym. And Austin shot 2,057 free throws. Wow. Because that's how many kids were orphaned during his day at school due to HIV/AIDS. And his goal was to raise $1 per shot, and he ended up raising about $3,000 a day, so he exceeded his goal. And we went into it thinking this is just a one-time event. This is awesome that a 9-year-old, and he was now 10 at the time when he did the event, can actually do something to help kids. And yeah, little did we know, 4 years later now, 5 years later, however long it's been, how it would grow.
What does an actual Hoops of Hope event look like? What's involved in it?
Well, a Hoops of Hope, basically, it looks like a ton of kids, teens, and adults all inside of a gym shooting hoops. All of them have a huge smile on their face, and every shot that we shoot represents a child who is orphaned because of AIDS. And so basically those teens and adults and kids too will go out and they'll get sponsors before the event, and then they come together on one day and shoot their hoops.
Hoops of Hope has become an international thing that certainly has caught the national attention of NBC and CBS and many other news organizations, even here locally. How has that affected Austin as a 14-year-old son?
The good news is it hasn't changed him. It hasn't changed him as a person from who he is. He's remained very humble through the whole thing. I think he's a little shocked at some of the attention that it's gotten. I think all of us are sitting on, is this really a story that deserves international attention? But we're so close to it too, that we see, just the true heart behind it and the true purity of what's trying to go on. And if people want to cover the story because of that, if it can motivate and influence adults and kids, around the world to say, hey, I can go out and do something, we're all for it. And that's Austin's passion too, is that he doesn't get as tired as you might think he gets, because he gets such energy out of seeing other kids his age realize that they can do something in this world. And every time he talks, he tells the kids, you do not need to be an adult to make a difference. And I think so many times I grew up that way, I'll do something when I get out of college or something like that. Austin's message is completely different, that you can be used now.
So Dan, you're getting your visas taken care of, you're taking time off of work, you're getting on a plane going to Africa, and you land. And you're with your son, and you're about to be introduced to this school built because of the efforts that he's put together. How did that impact you? What was going through your mind?
You know what? I didn't know what to expect, Todd. I knew that we were going over there. I knew we were going to meet some of the people that Austin's been working so hard to help. I knew we were going to see a school dedicated, but actually probably the best advice that was ever given to me was don't have any expectations, right? Just let it happen. We finally got out into what we would call kind of the bush area. No power, no running water. It blew my mind, rocked my world. It's so different than what you would expect.
Honestly, Africa, even like you're saying, when you first get off the airplane, you're in a totally different world. And when I was over in Africa, I think that my life really changed. It opened my eyes to the kids that we were actually helping. It was amazing. And it was just amazing because these kids over there, even though they had nothing, they were so giving, and they found ways to touch your hearts, without, material possessions and stuff. Like one time I was able to give a little boy a soccer ball, and the very next day his mom walked 12 miles to find me just to give me a letter that this little boy had stamp writing for me.
It'll rock anyone's world. Just to And the people are beautiful, though. They're wonderful people, the kindest people you'll ever meet. You know, they have nothing, but they would give you what they had. You know, don't think of the people in Africa as this, you know, oh, woe is me, poverty-stricken. I mean, they don't know anything else. So, you know, you have kids that have never had a pair of shoes. You know, if they're given a pair of shoes that don't fit or have holes in them, they're pretty grateful, right? A little different mindset. It was weeks before I could even talk about, you know, what we had seen. And I remember we met some people at the airport there, and they asked, you know, what we were doing, and we tried to explain a little bit about the school and the dedication. And, you know, 1,000 kids are going to get to go to school now that never had the chance to go to school. And they're going to be able to learn and get a diploma, and if they want to, go to a larger city where there is industry and actually get a job. You're trying to explain this to people in this airport, and it was almost impossible. And, you know, if you haven't experienced that, you know, you can't understand, you know, what we went through for 9 days. So yeah, they always say that, you know, Africa will continually call you back, and I understand why.
What are the kids like there?
Well, honestly, the kids in Africa, they really are a lot like us. It's just that they're living in poverty, so they have a lot less than us, but they still like to go out, you know, play sports, play soccer. They still love to have fun.
Dan, what advice do you have for parents that, you know, maybe their child's watching this video or has other inspiration, and they come to their parent, and without wanting to kill their spirit, the parent's wanting to encourage them, but also trying to encourage them to maybe set some realistic goals to really make a change?
I think, you know, the biggest challenge that parents have in encouraging their kids is that there aren't those support programs around them for a kid that comes with a giant heart. And, you know, we look at Austin just like you'd look at anybody else, that this is his gift. You know, and he's not a great basketball player, he's not a great soccer player, and you know, he loves sports, but
he has a heart to help in any way he can.
Absolutely, yeah.
Austin, you know, parents and kids and people of many generations are watching this video right now, and I'm sure one of the things going through their mind is, how can I be a part of this? It sounds like a fun way to get together with a group of people, raise some money, and make such a significant and profound difference. To tell people how they can get involved.
Well, if they want to get involved, they definitely can. We'd really encourage them to. They can either participate and do their own Hoops of Hope event and shoot hoops themselves, or if, you know, maybe they don't want to. It doesn't matter how good you are at basketball, because honestly, I'm really not the best. You can also donate or sponsor somebody that is shooting hoops, and all that can be found at hoopsofhope.org.
Thank you, Austin. I really appreciate you welcoming Morgan and I into your home and just sharing your heart and telling us what's going on in your life. Thank you.